are conscious of your own power, when you are conscious of your own magic, when you are conscious of your own spiritual technology, when you are conscious of your sovereignty, as you're in this body, living on this physical plane, however you want to word that, that means that you will often find yourself surrounded by people who are not conscious of their own sovereignty, people who are viewing themselves and viewing life through the lens of a construct, through the lens of programming, of conditioning. It also means that as you are in communication with people who aren't conscious of their own influence to see positive change and to live outside of a box that has been modeled for them, that they can live outside of a box that they were given. It also means that you have to be very conscious yourself not to view those people as stupid or less than. You're not looking down on them. You're looking at them as equal, just existing life through a different lens. It also means that sometimes you will hear people say things that you just want to shake them and say, no. Do you realize that there's another way? Do you realize that there's a more elevated way? Do you realize that you don't have to abide by this programming? You don't have to abide by these constructs. You were designed to create for yourself. That's how you were designed. Not to just accept a way of doing things or a way of existing just because that's what you've seen, just because that's what was modeled, or just because you've never considered another way. For example, I'm going to use a money example because number one, I like talking about money, and number two, we can understand money, and it's easy to illustrate certain things. So, sitting amongst people who view life, who view getting money only through the lens of going to get a job, because that's what's been modeled for them. They only think the only way that they can get money, receive money, have money is only through the construct of the workforce. And the workforce is a construct. We get programmed to think that the only way to receive money, the only way to get money is by going to get a job, and that's programmed in us when we start daycare, when we go to kindergarten, school. It's designed that way for a reason, to keep you locked in to the construct of the workforce. And then what happens is we take that conditioning and then we pass it down to the kids that are around us. you start to hear adults, older adults, it really doesn't matter the age, because they are in that construct, because they are viewing money through the lens of the workforce. They will speak that conditioning down onto the other kids. For example, we hear things like, kids for whatever reason, they don't like to go to sleep. They like to be up. They could be walking around like zombies, just tired, red eyes, puffy eyes, but they will continue to go and go and go. And then when you say bedtime, they lose their shit. They go crazy because they don't want to go to sleep. And you'll hear adults say things like, oh, well, you better, you got to enjoy sleep now, because when you get older, then you're going to have to get up in the morning. You're going to have to go clock in. You're going to have to set your alarm so you can get up and go to work, go to a job. These are the things that I hear. Perhaps you can relate to this as well. And when I hear that, it's cringe for me. Okay, I don't know. Are people still saying cringe? But I cringe. And what I try not to do is I try not to get into any type of back and forth with people who are not allowing their consciousness to expand. They're not allowing their minds to expand for whatever reason. Okay, we all have our path. We all have, our experiences. I'll put it that way. And so I'm always intentional about the way that I word things when it comes to especially money, because again, I don't want to argue with anyone, but yet I also want the kids, for example, that I have in my life, my nieces and nephews, I want them to be aware of the infinite possibilities that they carry in their spirit and that they carry in their soul, so they can know they can live this life and be free of a schedule and be only the schedule. They only have to adhere to a schedule that they set for themselves, not a schedule someone else has set for them. They do not have to be a part of the workforce system. They can live with more than enough resources, with more than enough money, without having to go clock in any fucking where. They can create that. They have the power within themselves to create that for themselves. People who view themselves and their lives through a programmed and conditioned lens, those are the people who be very quick to talk about what's realistic and what isn't, because they have set the standard through the lens of conditioning about what's realistic for them. And let that be for them. You never have to get into any type of debate about what a person views as realistic, and I'm bringing that up is because, again, if we're talking about money and the ways to receive money and get money, many people will think that they will be the first to say, oh, well, it's, to go and get a job, to be part of the workforce is realistic. Well, that can be realistic for you, but it's not realistic for me. It can be realistic for that individual that's saying it, but that notion of realistic doesn't have to apply to anyone else. And really doesn't have to apply to children who are still, in a sense, their mind is still free, because many of them have not been, I guess, dumped on. Is that the phrase that I want to use? They haven't been immersed fully in conditioning. So I just wanted to give you that message to remind you, you don't have to get into any type of argument with anyone on what's realistic and what's not. And also know that when you are in communication with other people who have not expanded their consciousness, sometimes it is better to just listen and don't let it affect you. Okay? Keep your vision. Keep centered on your visions. Keep centered on the messages that you have received from your own spirit. And stay centered in your magic. Okay? Yeah. That's the message that I wanted to give you today. Stay magical.